I want to talk to you guys about this new viral trend that is almost perfectly designed to mobilize the youth vote. Now, it's no secret that I'm a young dude. I'm 22 years old, but I don't spend enough time talking about issues that my generation in particular care about. I spend a lot of time talking about democracy, talking about foreign affairs, but Gen Zers care a lot about things like reproductive freedoms, as everybody does. We care a lot about education reform, particularly gun reform, but there's this new viral trend going around. This article reads, many young voters are watching Trump's Access Hollywood videos for the first time. There are TikToks getting millions and millions of views of women reacting to Donald Trump's grab her by the you-know-what tape from a few years back, and it's really making the waves across all of social media with the perfect timing. With 3 days to go, it's so nice that people are now being introduced to the worst parts of Donald Trump. Make sure you guys like the video. We're trying to get to 700,000 subscribers, so subscribe below. And let's start off with this article that reads, in October 2016, when the Washington Post first published Donald Trump's Access Hollywood video, the outrage was swift and acute. 8 years later, voters are watching the video for the first time. Many young voters are seeing it for the first time on TikTok and experiencing the same shock at hearing those words. And why do we waste any time? Let's jump right in and listen to one person on TikTok reacting to it with 500,000 likes. Could you imagine if my videos got 500,000 likes? That's a massive reach.
I moved on her, and I failed. I'll admit it. Whoa. I did try and fuck her. She was married.
It's huge news, Sarah.
No, Nancy. Yeah. No, this was marriages, and I moved on
Trigger
her
warning.
very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where they have some nice furniture. I took her out furniture. I moved on her like a bitch, but I couldn't get there, and she was married. And all of a sudden, I see her. She's now got the big phony tits and everything. She's totally changed her look. I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. I can do anything.
Pull the hem.
Okay, so again, just look at some of these statistics. These are young voters, 500,000 likes, 5,000 comments almost, 30,000 shares at the bottom here. That's amazing. And the person captioned it, not even sure how you can look your daughter in the eye and say you're voting for Trump, hearing the way he speaks about women. And it's not even this clip in particular. I mean, of course, this clip is terrible, but in 2022, in a closed door deposition, Donald Trump doubled down on these exact remarks. So when he was asked, do you still stand by those comments? He said, well, it seems to be true. In the million years, women do let celebrities do it, unfortunately or fortunately. That's what he says. He literally says, unfortunately or fortunately. This article continues. On TikTok, multiple creators have shared audio or video of Trump bragging about sexually assaulting women during his infamous 2005 hot mic moment with co-host Billy Bush. A 22-year-old creator who spoke to Teen Vogue said, quote, it shows the full extent of how depraved it is. Now, at the time, it was largely believed that this would sink the Trump campaign or at least greatly diminish his chances of winning. But no, we don't live in reality anymore. Trump apologized for his comments for the only time he has ever apologized for anything, calling them, quote, locker room banter, but the judge was done. That's not really an apology. That is called downplaying it. That is not how normal people ever talk, especially not in locker rooms. That's an insane thing to say about women. It's an insane thing to come out of anybody's mouth. Republican officials came out in droves to condemn his remarks, and many rescinded their endorsement of him after that came out. Still, Trump went on to win the election. And I'm not saying this is going to decide the election this time, but you guys know that young voters are a force to be reckoned with, and we'll talk about that more. But this is another video of the same vein that got another 150,000 likes. 17,000 shares, and it's just like, could you imagine having a professor in college or even a teacher in high school that, number one, refused to take accountability for anything, number two, always made up nicknames for all of the other staff that he was in an argument with, number three, was constantly just tweeting about students, tweeting about staff, and number four, was caught on camera saying this.
I moved on her, and I failed. I'll admit it. I did try and fuck her. She was married.
It's huge news, Sarah.
No, Nancy.
Yeah.
No, this was marriages, and I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where they have some nice furniture. I took her out furniture. I moved on her like a bitch, but I couldn't get there, and she was married. And all of a sudden, I see her. She's now got the big phony tits and everything. She's totally changed her look. I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab him by the pussy. You can do anything.
Pull the ham.
All right, the reactions of these girls was actually making me crack a smile a bit because their reactions were funny, but the subject matter is, of course, not funny whatsoever. But I think this is a great vehicle to deliver this to hundreds, thousands of young kids. Imagine them watching CNN and listening to Jake Tapper in a suit say this. It's not going to have as much impact, I'm sorry, as somebody who's our age, who's just sitting there like fixing their hair while listening to Donald Trump say this. It's a lot more relatable and digestible, and that's why young people rely on TikTok. This article continues right here. The video has haunted Donald Trump. It was included as evidence last year in the E. Jean Carroll trial when Trump appeared to back his own comments in 2022. This is what I was saying. He said, quote, well, that's what, if you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Donald Trump said. And this comes at a time when Donald Trump is talking about protecting women relentlessly. Take a listen to this clip.
And my people told me about 4 weeks ago, I was saying, no, I want to protect the people. I want to protect the women of our country. I want to protect the women. Sir, please don't say that. Why? They said, we think it's very inappropriate for you to say. I said, why? I'm president. I want to protect the women of our country. They said. They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say. Pay these guys a lot of money. Can you believe it? I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them.
Man, if Donald Trump didn't own his own company throughout his life, he would totally be the guy at the company that always was racking up HR complaints. Time after time, he would go, whether they like it or not, I'm going to do it. Just the language he uses is so inherently pushy and aggressive. Whether they like it or not, I don't care. So even besides Donald Trump's insane, vile comments, I can list off some other reasons why Gen Z doesn't like him. Listen to this clip of Donald Trump in Milwaukee last night speaking about climate change.
It used to be global warming, and that wasn't working because we're actually cooling. So we have that. But you know, the biggest warming problem we have is nuclear warming. So they talk all the time about the ocean will rise in 500 years, 1/8 of an inch. Who the hell cares, okay? Who the hell?
I'm guessing some people in the state of Florida and Georgia and North Carolina care, and this is such a straw man. When Republicans talk about climate change, they act like liberals think we're 5 years away from death, or that in 10 years the earth will light into a ball of fire. No, we are already seeing very repeated patterns that ocean levels are rising in places like Florida, and it's not 500 years from now, it's a very real 50, 60, 70 years from now. I mean, 60 years from now, people that are alive now will still be alive, will still be living in Florida, will probably be living in their homes or their parents' homes. There are 22-year-olds who bought homes now who may not have that home. These are very real problems for very real people. Not to mention, climate change definitely caused both of those hurricanes, or at least exacerbated the hurricanes that we recently saw along Florida, North Carolina, and Georgia. So Donald Trump undermines climate change, and it usually ends up coming back around to hurt the very states that his voters live in. Places like Florida, places like North Carolina or Georgia, even though those are swing states. Mainly Florida is going to be completely effed in about 50 years. So again, Donald Trump is using a straw man. And to take a step back, that's why Gen Z cares so much, because Gen Z is the one that actually has to face the repercussions of climate change. I'm 22 years old, so in 40 years, when Florida is going underwater, when the earth is still raising in its temperature, when all of this stuff is happening, Donald Trump sure won't be around, but I definitely will. There's even a chance I hopefully still have some sort of political platform then, so I hope that we can take preventative measures so I'm not spending my 40s, 50s, and 60s dealing with climate change when this is something that could have been fixed under the Biden administration. Or not fixed, at least the problem could have been eased a little bit, because Biden has passed massive climate change reform. So my broader point here is that Gen Z absolutely loathes Donald Trump largely because of his climate change views, because of his insane, incendiary rhetoric, and because during our most formative years, we had to listen to this dude yap on and refuse to take accountability. But with that being said, Gen Z is still very diverse. The vast majority of Gen Z believes believes in climate change, believes in marriage equality, believes in education and gun reform. Yes, you can convince basically any Gen Zer that climate change is real. But that being said, a lot of Gen Zers don't know shit about politics, and they just get they get sucked into this Donald Trump macho vibe that he gives off. And you and I probably don't see the macho vibe, but I just want you to try to step in the shoes of somebody that knows nothing about politics, some 20-year-old that just plays video games all day. You see the dude who held up his fist after he almost got shot and who wants to bring prices down. And then you see Kamala Harris, which she's amazing, but most young people have probably only seen videos of her worst moments, to be fair. I mean, that is how the media ecosystem works. You just see the worst clips of people's lives, but that's what we try to change. I mean, I've made countless TikTok videos trying to show young men that Kamala Harris is effing awesome. Here's a clip of Donald Trump just melting down as his microphone goes out. This happened less than 24 hours ago.
Do you want to see me knock the hell out of people backstage? You want to see me? I don't mind if they want to come up a little forward or something, but it's a pretty stupid situation, but that's okay. I get so angry. I'm up here seething. I'm seething. I'm working my ass off with this stupid mic.
This dude is actually really mad. Like, he's saying this in a sort of sarcastic tone. I'm seething. No, but he's actually really mad. He spent at least 30 minutes of this rally just getting pissed off.
It's a pretty stupid situation, but that's okay. I get so angry. I'm up here seething. I'm seething. I'm working my ass off with this stupid mic. I'm blowing out my left arm. Now I'm going to blow out my right arm, and I'm blowing out my damn throat, too.
Oh, the absolute horror of having to hold up a mic for at least 20 minutes. If you're running for the president of the United States and you get tired or exhausted from a rally like this, you don't have the stamina, man. You don't have the stamina. And let me just bring this back to the central point of this video. Young voters like somebody who has the stamina. Young voters really appreciate somebody who can at least connect with us, and that is VP Harris. You know, this article reads, U.S. election 2024, youth poll shows Kamala Harris is winning Gen Z's heart. The Harvard Youth Poll shows that Kamala Harris has a substantial lead over Donald Trump among voters aged 18 to 29, that's me, with 60% support for Kamala compared to Trump's 32%. And I just want to say, there is a reality where Trump does get a decent amount of the youth vote on election night due to young men turning out, due to just economic anxiety, and due to people not understanding how much of a threat he is to our institutions. Of course, an 80-year-old who has been through, I don't even know how many peaceful transfer of powers, is going to value that process more so than a 20-year-old who doesn't even know what the peaceful transfer of power is. And I'm just using these people as placeholders. I don't mean to generalize. I'm definitely not saying that all 20-year-olds are uneducated about politics. That is never what I'm trying to say in this video. You guys know that I'm just broadly trying to talk about Gen Z. A recent Harvard Youth Poll conducted by the Institute of Politics at Harvard Kennedy School reveals that young Americans are largely leaning towards VP Harris in the upcoming 2024 presidential election. That's probably because Trump looks approximately 95 years old whenever he speaks, and VP Harris looks like she's still 44 years old whenever she speaks, even though she's 59. One striking revelation from the poll is the strong influence of peer behavior on voting decisions. When young people believe their friends will participate in the election, 79% are likely to vote themselves. In contrast, only 35% express the intent to vote when they anticipate lower peer turnout. This highlights the importance of social dynamics in mobilizing young voters and peer pressure. I mean, peer pressure is real. I'm going to go text my friends right now that they are losers if they don't go out and vote. They are not invited to future parties. No, that's what peer pressure is, though. While Harris maintains a solid lead among young registered voters nationally, a 20-point advantage, the race tightens in crucial battleground states. In some of the key states, Arizona and Pennsylvania, her lead narrows to 9 points among registered young voters. The poll also indicates a widening gender gap, which is very obvious. Young women are fleeing the MAGA movement and Donald Trump, young women like the ones in these TikToks I just showed. Meanwhile, young men are oftentimes pretty disengaged and they just vote how their parents do, and when they are engaged, it's usually because they're on some right-wing algorithm where TikTok is showing them all these videos of immigrants. I mean, I have friends all the time that live in Indiana, They live in Indiana and they're complaining about immigration. I'm like, how much of a problem is this in your day-to-day life? They just say they see it on online videos. With some quick rapid-fire news, this article reads, a video showing Haitian immigrants illegally voting was faked by Russian disinformation unit, the U.S. says. Now, the Georgia Secretary of State has already asked Twitter, or X, and other social media sites to pull the clip, but do you guys think Elon Musk is going to pull Russian disinformation? He benefits from Russian disinformation, and this is just a perfect example of this invisible war that Russia is waging on the US. They spread disinformation online relentlessly and target our most vulnerable citizens, people who are already predisposed to thinking that the election was rigged due to Donald Trump and Elon Musk weakening their trust in our institutions, and then Russia literally leaps on that and takes advantage. A video purporting to show recently arrived Haitian immigrants illegally voting in Georgia for Kamala Harris was produced by a Russian government-backed disinformation unit, according to U.S. authorities. This sentence right here is enough to give any MAGA supporter an absolute brain aneurysm. Haitian immigrants illegally voting in Georgia for Kamala Harris was produced by the Russian government. Those are all of the trigger words that trigger Trump supporters. The next rapid fire news is this hilarious excerpt from Bob Woodward's book. It reads, Biden could be much more indignant and profane in private than he appeared in public. One Saturday afternoon during his first year as president, Biden had called a friend from the Oval Office. Quote, I've spent almost 5 hours going back and forth on the phone with two of the biggest fucking assholes in the world, Bibi Netanyahu and Mahmoud Abbas, he said, referring to the Prime Minister of Israel and the Palestinian leader. Two of the biggest fucking assholes in the world, Biden repeated with emphasis. And I sent this to a few of my Muslim family members who think that Biden is some cold-hearted person who just loves Netanyahu. Of course, that is not true. We are arguing all the time about that, and that's healthy. That is how relationships are supposed to be. But I sent it to them and was like, hey guys, Biden was walking a tightrope. He wasn't happy with what was going on either. And then finally, I want to show you this article, Inside the Ruthless, Restless Final Days of Trump's Campaign. At the end of June, in the afterglow of the debate performance that would ultimately prompt Joe Biden to end his campaign, Donald Trump startled his aides by announcing that he'd come up with a new nickname for his opponent. Quote, the guy's a retard, Donald Trump said. Quote, he's retarded. I think that's what I'll start calling him. Trump declared aboard his campaign plan. Those were Trump's words, not mine, by the way. En route to a rally that evening, according to 3 people who heard him make the remarks, quote, retarded Joe Biden. The staffers present, and within hours, others who had heard about the epithet secondhand, pleaded with Trump not to say this publicly. They warned him that it would antagonize the moderate voters who'd been breaking in their direction while engendering sympathy for a politician who, at the moment, was the subject of widespread ridicule. As Trump demurred, musing that he might debut the nickname at that night's event, his staffers puzzled over the timing. Biden was on the ropes. Polls showed that Trump was jumping to the biggest lead he's enjoyed out of any of his 3 campaigns for presidency. Why would he debut such a juvenile insult right when he's taking the lead? Over the next several days, Trump's aides held their breath, convinced that he would debut his latest slur at any moment. They came to realize something about Trump. He was restless, unhappy, and sort of tired of winning, or at least staying afloat. For the previous 20 months, he'd been hemmed in by a campaign built on the principles of restraint and competence. The former president's ugliest impulses were regularly curbed by his top advisors. His most obnoxious allies and most outlandish ideas were sidelined, and I think we're starting to see that restraint slip over the past few weeks. These guardrails had produced a somewhat professional campaign. This is earlier in the campaign cycle. A campaign that was headed for victory. But now, like a predator toying with its wounded catch, Trump has become bored. It reminded some of his allies of his havoc-making decisions in the White House. Trump never had much use for calm and quiet, and he doesn't appreciate normalcy. Quote, people are calling this the most disciplined campaign they've ever seen. And this was a few months back before Trump started to melt down in front of our eyes. Ever since, I'd say, the National Association of Black Journalists, where Donald Trump had a combative back and forth with the journalist on stage, every event has been the same. Now, Trump never did deploy the nickname against Biden in public, yet the restiveness he felt during that stretch of the race foretold a dramatic shift in tone and tenor in the campaign. Within weeks, Trump would survive an assassination attempt, Biden would abandon his candidacy, and VP Harris would replace Biden atop the Democratic ticket. And while that happened, Trump became more agitated with what he saw as the trust the plan, run up the clock strategy didn't work, and his cautious approach began to fade as he began to melt down in front of our eyes. In conversations with nearly a dozen of the former president's aides, advisors, and friends, it became apparent that Trump's feeling of midsummer tedium marked a crucial moment in his political career, setting off a chain reaction that nearly destroyed his campaign and continues to threaten his chances of victory. Even as they battled Democrats in a race that refuses to move outside the margin of error, some of Trump's closest allies spent the closing months of the campaign at war with one another, planting damaging stories and rallying to the defense of wronged colleagues. So for the first 10 days of Kamala's campaign, Trump listened very carefully to his campaign co-managers Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita. They said that the fundamentals of the strategy had remained solid, nothing needs to change. Trump went along with the plan for a while, but every hour his campaign spent attacking Harris as if she were a credible opponent, rather than bludgeoning her as an airheaded, unqualified, empty pantsuit as Trump has been, gnawed at the former president. Finally, he ran out of patience, and on July 31st, during an onstage interview with the National Association of Black Journalists, Trump publicly unloaded the sort of race-baiting barbs that his aides had up until that point contained. And hey, I had only read about half of this article before I wanted to include it during this rapid-fire segment, and they pinpointed the same exact time that I did. Leave a like for that. The National Association of Black Journalists. Quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black," Trump said on stage as the audience gasped. In the days following, staffers scrambled, but Trump only doubled down. I can read the rest of this article in another video. If you made it this far, drop a like, subscribe, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.